Just fair warning, this is a spoiler-filled video, indeed designed to fill you in on all that happened in the second season of HBO's The Leftovers. With that said, let's get to it. After a brand new opening title sequence, The Leftovers Season 2 kicks off with one of the more confounding scenes of the entire series. A prehistoric woman being separated from her people, giving birth, struggling to survive, and ultimately perishing by snakebite. But it's in the seeming randomness of that sequence that it gains its poetry and power. Through it, we're pulled perfectly into the mindsets of the characters on this show, wondering what it all means, how it connects, and if indeed there is a larger plan at all. Flash forward a couple thousand years to the same geographical spot, which is now shown to be a place called Jardin, Texas. And it's here that we meet Evie Murphy and her two friends Taylor and Violet, who themselves are rather enigmatic. One moment laughing and telling jokes about broken pencils, and the next sitting in somber silence and running through the woods naked. The rest of the Murphy family, Michael, Erica, and John, all seem normal enough, if not above average, in their love and devotion for one another. Only the slightest bit of Mr. Murphy's obsessive behavior is betrayed as he hunts for an elusive cricket in his house. Next, we're introduced to the rest of Miracle National Park, a place that is quickly shown to be anything but normal. On October 14th, 2011, while the rest of the world reeled from the sudden departure, every one of its 9,261 residents stayed put, many of whom presently display some rather peculiar behavior, perpetually wearing a wedding dress, killing goats in public, living atop a tower, and writing letters to a Mr. David Burton in Sydney, Australia. Nonetheless, bus after bus of tourists pilgrim there, wanting a part of that place's safety and meaning, and one such provider of that meaning is a man named Isaac, who, after taking people's palm prints, claims that he can see in them their futures. But even as the fortune teller warns John that something bad is in his, the fire chief dismisses the warning, choosing instead to boot Isaac from town and burn his house to the ground. Meanwhile, from out of the ground, Mrs. Murphy unearths a shoebox, inside of which is a living bird. At church, a place that Michael seems much more involved in than the rest of his family, we encounter the first of our Season 1 characters, Matt Jameson, who's temporarily filling in for the town's pastor. The next day, John finds a mysterious pie on his front porch, as well as some new neighbors moving in next door, the Garveys and Nora. Likely from a desire to get rid of the mysterious pie more than anything else, John invites the Garveys over for his birthday dinner, and together they all enjoy what may be their last blissful meal in a while. Already the feeling of unease and dread hanging in the air as John confesses to having been in prison, Kevin sees something that isn't there, and Evie has an epileptic seizure. The party wrapping up, Evie gives to her father the greatest present he's ever gotten, making him promise to open it later, and then heads out for the evening with her friends. Hours later, an earthquake awakens the Murphys in their house. All the Murphys except Evie. Going out to the lake, John and Michael find the girls' car, but no Evie, no Taylor, and no Violet. And no water, the earthquake having drained it completely. For episode 2, we flash back to Mapleton, New York, where after finding baby Lily on the Garveys' front porch, Nora and Kevin confess to one another their deepest, darkest secrets. Those being Kevin's final interaction with Patty Levin, and Nora's habit of hiring prostitutes to shoot her. And with those parts of their lives brought into the light, the characters finally begin to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything will be okay, prompting them to, a couple months later, officially adopt Lily. The true state of Kevin's mind is more accurately understood through the Pixies' song, Where Is My Mind, which he blasts in his headphones to quite literally block out the world around him. It's apparently not enough, however, as Kevin suddenly decides to dig up Patty's body and intentionally get himself arrested. In a wonderfully bizarre turn of events, though, one that perfectly illustrates the state of the world after the sudden departure and society's general hatred for the guilty remnant, Kevin is released with not so much as a slap on the wrist. At which point we discover that Patty Levin has never released Kevin. The something that he's been seeing for the last number of months has in fact been the ghost of that deceased guilty remnant leader. Jill and Tom, meeting secretly, attempt to reparate their own pasts, but Tom is unwilling to come home, and Jill refuses to forgive her mother. Scientists from MIT offer Nora $2.7 million for her house, reminding us that people continue to seek to understand the sudden departure. These gentlemen specifically hypothesizing that it was a matter of geography. But the most important idea that the scene introduces, and the one that Nora finds the most terrifying and really kind of is the driving force behind all of her actions this season, is that there could be a recurrence. Something like the sudden departure could happen, again, stealing away those that she's finally beginning to feel safe with. Kevin returns home to discover that Garvey Sr. has been released from the mental institution and is now en route to Australia. Before leaving, though, he plants two important ideas in his son's mind. One, he's found solace by listening to the voices in his head, and two, he's leaving Mapleton in an attempt to start the world up again. And so, that night at dinner, Kevin asks the rest of his family, "Want to get out of here?" Jarred in Texas, here the Garveys come. A move that continues to brilliantly balance the competing feelings of hope and dread. Yes, the Garveys' arrival in Miracle National Park is marked by smiling faces, uplifting music, and vibrant colors. But it's also paired with a scene that forces Kevin to put his dog in quarantine, which itself is a perfect metaphor for that man's psyche, presently caged, but to what end and for how long? Nora's own issues are brought out when, after discovering that their rental property has burnt down, she, in a blind rush, spends every last cent of their $3 million to buy a home in town. Kevin wouldn't have been so upset by this sudden decision if he hadn't just discovered that the move to Texas did not shake Patty Levin, something that the mysterious Virgil insinuates that he's aware of by randomly approaching Kevin in the visitor center and telling him that he can help him with his situation. After John's party, Kevin falls asleep, and then awakens at the bottom of the now dried lake bed, a cinder block tied to his ankle. Stumbling out, he comes across the girl's abandoned car and, quite unfortunately, leaves a perfect palm print on the window. In episode 3, we're shown the third piece of this season's puzzle, Laurie and Tom. Having both been terribly burned by the cults that they served in the first season, they now work together to rescue others from the guilty remnant. Tom infiltrating their hives, finding those that are having second thoughts, and bringing them to Laurie's support group. Laurie especially sees in these rescue missions a way to rescue herself, because if she can bring others back, then maybe, just maybe, she can come back too. At the same time, she works to further expose the GR by pouring out her past experiences into a book, all of which is becoming more and more difficult as her landlord demands rental money that she doesn't have, ultimately leading to the support group's eviction and the stealing of Laurie's laptop, on which she kept her entire book. Unwilling and unable to start over again, Laurie breaks into her landlord's house and steals back the laptop. The elating victory seems to unlock something in Laurie, though, and on the drive home, she remorselessly runs over a pair of GR members with her car. Life continues to swing in Laurie's favor as she successfully reunites a family and finds a publisher who's interested in her book. All too soon, though, the pendulum swings back and swings back hard. Tom is found out by the guilty remnant and brought to Meg, who, without a moment's hesitation, forces herself on the young man, douses him with gasoline, and then coolly states, "Tell your mom Meg says hello." Meanwhile, Laurie discovers that the ex-GR member that she'd thought she saved has killed herself and her family, and that the would-be publishers are only interested in finding the next bestseller versus exposing the GR with the truth. And in this despair, Tommy and Laurie have an epiphany. The reason that the guilty remnant is winning is because they're giving people something. Something to hold on to. Something to make them feel safe. Something to believe in. And so, mother and son decide that they will give them something too. A story. As Tommy tells it, before dying, Holy Wayne passed on to him his gift, and now he can hug people's pain away. The amazing thing about this scene, even as Tommy is bald-faced lying, he is still communicating so much truth about himself. He really does want what Holy Wayne had, able to minister to and heal others, and in so doing, not too dissimilar to his mother, find healing himself. Episode 4 wastes no time mercilessly demonstrating to Nora just how out of control her existence remains. Another earthquake waking her to find Kevin gone. And even as he returns minutes later, the bell has been rung and that fear is now alive and well within her heart. Kevin realizing that he's left his phone out at the crime scene, he and Nora join the Murphy parents and the rest of the search party down at the dried up lake. Though Kevin ignores her, Ghost Patty Levin not only appears to know where his mobile device is, but also what happened to Evie and her friends. Even as Kevin finds himself becoming more and more sure of Patty's genuine presence, Lindelof ever leaves it nebulous. Does she really know things beyond what Kevin already knows? Or is she simply spouting off his own repressed thoughts, knowledge, and feelings? Confusion and misinterpretation are the name of the game for everyone this episode. For John, the palm print on the car window automatically incriminating Isaac instead of Kevin. Consequently, John recruits his new neighbor to go and pay the fortune teller a visit, which doesn't go over well at all. John leaving with no new information about his daughter and a bullet in his gut. Fortunately, Erica just so happens to be a nurse and is able to quite quickly patch him up. It's not quite so easy to mend Kevin's mind, however, and after being heckled, badgered, and annoyed by Patty for months, he finally succumbs and speaks to her, and in so doing legitimizes her existence, an acknowledgement that does anything but shut the ghost up. As she will time and again, Patty plainly points out the very thing that Kevin's been unwilling to face. Maybe the reason that he tied a cinder block to his ankle and jumped into a lake is because he doesn't love his family and just wants to die. Even as he's shaken by that thought, Kevin returns home, finding there a woman who's still willing to remain with him in the midst of his confusion and fear, going so far as to cuff her body to his. In episode 5, we finally learn why Matt and Mary Jameson remain in Jardin, Texas, and why Matt, day after day, repeats the exact same actions. It's a ritual designed to recreate the day that the couple had first arrived in town, and Mary, for one glorious night, had awoken. And that faithful labor is seemingly rewarded. At a routine checkup at the doctor's office, Matt is informed that Mary is pregnant. Ever the Job-like character, though, things can't go too well, too long for Matt. And while attempting to help a seemingly stranded father and son just outside of Jardin, he is attacked, and his and Mary's wristbands are stolen. Surprisingly, the park ranger allows Matt back into town, Kevin is contacted, and John offers the Jamesons new wristbands. At which point, they hit a snag. As miracle-shy as ever, John wants Matt to deny that Mary ever woke up. And though Matt initially agrees, he can't help but ask John, "What happened to you?" Which is the wrong question to ask, leading to Matt and Mary's ejection from town. While searching for help in the migrant camp, Matt encounters a man in stocks that can only be freed if someone takes his place. Still too concerned with getting Mary back into town, Matt moves on, finding a man who claims to know the way. Unfortunately, he's unwilling to divulge said information without payment. Payment that Matt finds himself forced to earn by striking a young man with an oar while shouting, "Brian." But even with the knowledge that that money purchases, Matt still finds himself unable to get back into town. No sooner does it feel that God has completely abandoned our Reverend, though, when his sister shows up, offering to sneak he and Mary back into town. And seeming to be all the more divinely orchestrated, while en route, they come upon a car crash that involves the father and son that had stolen their wristbands earlier. Removing the band from the now deceased man and returning it to his wife's wrist, Matt then takes the now orphan child to John Murphy for care. And the episode concludes with Matt returning to the migrant camp where, whether out of charity or a need to earn his penance, he takes the place of the man in stocks. Episode 6 continues to introduce those that seek to understand why 2% of the world's population departed, one of whom turns up at Nora's front door, scientific equipment in hand, clearly insinuating that not only did she have something to do with her family's departure, but Evie and her friends as well. Nora's response? Chuck a rock through the Murphys' window. Which may seem bizarre, but this is a woman carrying around so much guilt because of her family's departure, and to suddenly be asked to carry around the weight of the Murphys as well just seems unbearably unjust. The next day, another questioning individual turns up in the neighborhood, this one from the Department of Sudden Departures, the company for whom Nora used to work. Their updated questionnaire includes a new theory that Nora finds particularly interesting called lensing, which attributes the sudden departure to individuals that give off a certain aura, which some posit were made that way by the demon Azrael, who chose them as his earthbound instruments. Another mysterious pie leads Erica to her father, Virgil, who's apparently attempting to make amends for something horrible that he did in the past, an action that got him shot by John Murphy. At a fundraiser for her missing daughter, Mrs. Murphy finally has a meltdown, fed up with those in town who still so confidently cling to whatever it was they believe spared them on October 14th. Taking advantage of this distracting tirade, Nora lifts the new DSD questionnaire from George's bag. She doesn't keep it to herself, however, bringing the test to Erica. And it's now that Erica finally confesses that she had planned to leave her family before Evie had disappeared, because she could no longer pretend, feigning that she was all right in this place. She explains, too, why she's been burying birds. It's a wish-granting act that her grandmother taught her. And even as Nora claims that she's moved past shouldering her own guilt, it's so clear that she hasn't, and that simply saying you're okay doesn't really heal the wounds. Returning home, Kevin confesses to Nora that he's losing his mind and that he's seen Pet 11. In episode 7, Kevin awakens to discover that Nora has left him. And though it may seem cruel, Nora's refusal to return to Kevin really does make sense for that character. After all, she was able to handcuff Kevin's body to hers, ensuring that she wouldn't lose that. But she can't contain his mind, and that is just too terrifying for her to accept. Desperate to get her back and unable to bear much more of Patty's heckling, Kevin finally asks the ghost plainly, "What do you want?" To which Patty surprisingly retorts, "I'm just as lost as you are." Fortunately, Michael turns up, offering to take him to Virgil for help. As it turns out, though, this isn't the first time that Kevin's come to Michael's grandfather, apparently having already sleepwalked to his place and explained his predicament. Virgil doesn't provide an easy solution, however, the old man explaining that if Kevin wants to rid himself of his most powerful adversary, he has to go to her turf, the other place, and that can only be accessed by dying, which Kevin has already tried back in episode 1 by drowning himself. Even as he's promised that his death will only be temporary, Kevin rejects the offer. To Kevin's shock, Laurie turns up up in Jarden, searching for Tom. And though his wife is distraught to discover that he's not there, the conversation does more to deflate Kevin, forcing him to realize just how cut off from the rest of his family he's become. Only backing him further into his corner of despair, Kevin then finds himself forced to provide a palm print for analysis. Running back to his ex-wife, Kevin is given the alternate point of view. Patty is merely in his mind, and he's in the middle of a psychotic break. Wanting to at least try to accept this, Kevin asks Laurie to come home with him. A phone call from Nora completely derails that plan, however. Kevin can't win her back until he rids himself of Patty once and for all. And so, with nowhere else to go, Kevin returns to Virgil, who makes him a poison cocktail, promising to revive him after he drinks it. But alas, after Kevin downs the drink, Virgil pulls out a gun, puts it in his mouth, and pulls the trigger. And in episode 8, The Leftovers really moves into some genre territory as we journey into the purgatory of Kevin's mind. After being born into this place through the waters of a bathtub, Kevin must choose between 3 different options of wardrobe, each one dictating what will happen next. Choosing the suit, Kevin unwittingly becomes international assassin Kevin Harvey, who is informed by Virgil, now the hotel's concierge, that his mission is to kill Patty Levin, who in this place is running for president. Once he's done so, he will be delivered. While awaiting Patty's arrival, Kevin rescues a girl from the swimming pool, whose father seems anything but thankful. Before going to see Patty, Kevin communicates with his father through his television, Garvey Sr. explaining that he's in Perth, Australia, and that his son must take Patty to the well. Before he can explain anything further, their connection is lost, and Kevin is taken to meet Senator Patty Levin, where he encounters one more deceased individual from his past. Patty explains her worldview that after October 14th, attachment and love became extinct, because in an instant it became abundantly clear that anyone could be lost at any time. Having heard enough, Kevin kills Patty's staff and then turns his gun on Patty. Before pulling the trigger though, she pleads that she is not actually Patty Levin, but merely a decoy. Not buying it, Kevin shoots her in the head, and still finds himself stuck in purgatory. Stopping outside his room, he converses with the father of the girl he saved from the pool. A cruel and detached man who, as it turns out, likes it when people defecate on him. This is actually Neil, Patty's husband, and his daughter isn't his daughter at all. She's Patty herself. And so, Kevin kills the abusive man, and he and Patty begin their journey to the well. And I've got to say, I absolutely love the handling of Kevin and Patty's relationship this episode. The creative decision to make a character who, at certain points, has been nothing short of grating, a young, innocent child who's only responding to the abuse that she's endured her entire life, was brilliant. Before crossing into Jarden, Kevin is stopped by a mysterious centurion who warns him that if he goes through with this, he will be changed forever. After receiving some more unheard wisdom from the centurion, Kevin presses on, ultimately mustering the strength to push young Patty into the well, which still isn't enough. Patty survives the fall, forcing Kevin to jump in after her, endure another humanizing monologue, and finally drown her with his bare hands. An earthquake begins to shake the purgatory of Kevin's mind, bringing him back to reality, where he crawls out of a hole that Michael had buried him in. In our penultimate episode, we flash back to October 13th, 2011, the day before the sudden departure, where we witness Meg, like so many characters on this show, undervaluing her family and drifting through a numb existence, in her case, one snort of cocaine at a time. Which is why, after her mother dies suddenly in a restaurant, she goes on a pilgrimage of her own to Miracle, Texas, hoping that the prophet Isaac can tell her what her mother's last words would have been. Unfortunately for her, and indeed all of those in Jarden, the answer is as meaningless as Meg feared. If she can't find answers, purpose, or safety in this place, then neither should anyone else. Before leaving, she briefly encounters Evie, who herself seems rather disenchanted with her town, and passes along that pointless knock-knock joke. Flash forward to the present, where Meg puts a stop to Tom's converting of her GR members by simply whispering in his ear, "I can do this for real." Now seeing that his mom is just using him to fix other families as a way to feel better about breaking her own, Tom abandons their work and goes to Meg. As it turns out, she and her followers are on their way back to Miracle, Texas. Hoping to find with them a cause worth fighting for, Tom tags along. And though Tom on one level remains this kind of annoying, spineless waif blown from one ideology to the next, I would still contend that he's phenomenally well written, as he's this character who is biologically connected to a birth parent that abandoned him, and therefore in equal measure wants to know that parent, but also separate himself from him, and that confusion is just tearing him apart. While en route to Texas, Meg and Tom stop at a bar where Tom asks the rogue leader why she had sex with him, to which she flatly replies, "I wanted to get you pregnant." The next day, Meg visits the migrant camp just outside of Jarden, where she encounters Matt, the first character that really seems able to see through this stoic leader. She's just as afraid and selfish as everyone else, using the guilty remnant to cover her own guilt, pain and hopelessness. Back at the GR farm, needing answers, Tom breaks into their barn, discovering what, or rather who, the cult is so intent on keeping secret. Evie Murphy, Taylor, and Violet. Episode 10 takes us back to the events of the season premiere, where we watch Evie and her friends stage their disappearance, an act that a sleepwalking Kevin witnesses right before jumping into the lake. Back in their present, we learn that Kevin has been dead and buried for a total of 8 hours, which seems to have accomplished what he hoped. Patty is gone. At the Murphys' house, John finally opens the present from Evie, which turns out to be a dead cricket. Though John is touched, Erica quickly points out that the dead insect merely symbolizes her husband's inability to let things go. A truth that is made all the more apparent when Mr. Murphy discovers that Kevin's palm print matches the one found on the missing girl's car. Wanting to share what he saw that night, Kevin agrees to go with John. Meanwhile, Nora waits, struggling with doubts that she'll ever feel whole enough to start a new family with Jill, Kevin, and Lily, when, suddenly, Mary Jameson wakes up. Overjoyed, Nora takes her sister-in-law to Matt, and we get to witness what is arguably one of the happiest moments in the series. Which, of course, means things are about to go horribly wrong. After cryptically whispering to Tom, "Family is everything," Meg pulls the trigger on her plan, which starts with her driving a trailer onto the bridge, a trailer that she claims is full of 35 pounds of plastic explosives. It isn't, but the 3 missing girls that walk out are no less destructive. Unfortunately, John misses their debut, and refusing to believe Kevin's story because believing it would mean that his daughter didn't love him, he shoots Kevin in the chest, and then walks outside to discover what a mistake he's made. At church, Michael helps to illuminate why Evie is doing all of this. She's spent her life pretending. When she was younger, she had never understood why her daddy had gone away, and had never felt the freedom to express that pain with the world. She may not have lost anyone on October 14th, but she was not spared. Even as Erica discovers that there are no explosives inside the trailer, it's too late, and the GR uses the distraction to storm the gates of Jordan, taking with them everyone from the migrant camp. In the chaos, Lily is snatched from Nora's arms, forcing her to truly own her love and care for that child. Here too, Tom is allowed to step in, helping Nora and the baby that he at one time had abandoned on his father's front porch. And once again, Kevin wakes up in purgatory. But this time, after dressing himself as a cop, he must sing the Simon & Garfunkel song Homeward Bound to free himself from this spiritual prison. The song works though, and Kevin is miraculously returned to life. As it turns out, though, he may as well have gone to hell, Jordan having been transformed into this flaming, chaotic nightmare since the GR's invasion. Still mortally wounded, Kevin stumbles into the town's clinic where he meets John, and finally these 2 broken men are able to recognize just how much they have in common. A fact that is so perfectly captured in the musical selection. The Pixies song Where's My Mind all season long has been Kevin's melody to bear alone, but now it's John's as well, and together they will bear that tune going forwards. And John won't be the only one. Returning home, Kevin is greeted by Jill, Laurie, Matt, Mary, Lily, Tommy, and Nora. The world may indeed be crumbling around them, but at least they'll have each other to hold on to until the end. And thus concludes the 2nd season of HBO's The Leftovers. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and definitely do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review Season 3 as it's airing, and I would love for you to stay up to date for that. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.